welcome back to the Harp Studio. I'm Samantha, and today I'm going to be showing you how to play a beginner arrangement of Merry-Go-Round of Life from Howl's Moving Castle. There's a link to the full video of this arrangement in the description of this video, as well as a link to the sheet music. This is an abridged beginner arrangement that can be played on lever or pedal harp. It does fit on a 26-string harp. It is in a key with 2 flats and requires a number of lever changes, so it is intended for a lever harp tuned in the key of E flat with a full set of levers. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be walking through the arrangement with some pointers of how to approach this piece, as well as answering the most common questions students usually have, rather than going through the whole piece note by note. But this is my first time making a tutorial video, so if you have any feedback or any concepts you want me to go into more detail on in another video, please let me know. Now, before playing any piece of music, it's always a good idea to take a look through the whole piece first and make any observations about anything that you notice. Pause the video now and do that yourself, then we'll go through it together. So the first thing that I want to look at is the key signature. So we've got 2 flats in our key signature. They're going to be B flat and E flat, right? So that means we need to have our B and E levers down, but we're going to want to put our A levers up. So if you've tuned your harp in E flat, then your E's, A's, and B's should all be flat. So that means we're going to want to put those A levers up to start with. Next, let's take a look at our time signature. We're going to be in 3/4 time here. So what that means is there's going to be 3 quarter notes in every bar, just something to be aware of. And then let's take a look at our lever and pedal settings. So sometimes when you begin a piece, you may need to set some of your levers or pedals in advance that do not belong to the key signature. That's been taken into account with the arrangement so that you can be ready for the notes you need rather than having to change a few extra levers or pedals in the middle of the piece. So if you play the pedal harp, you're going to be looking at this diagram right here. So this is going to tell you you need your B and E pedals in the flat position at the top notch, your F pedal in the sharp position on the bottom notch, and then the remaining 4 pedals in the natural position. If you play the lever harp where it says set levers, these diamond shapes here, the levers on those strings we want to set to the notes that are indicated. So we've got the F just above middle C, we're going to raise that lever so that it's F sharp. And then the E above middle C right beside the other one you just changed. That E we're going to flip up, so now it's an E natural instead of E flat. Speaking of pedals and levers, let's look through the piece and find where we have pedal and lever changes. So first thing to be aware of is the way that these things look in the piece. So if you see a big old letter and then an accidental type, sharp, natural, or flat, underneath the staff like this one, that's a pedal marking. So pedal harpists, you're going to want to pay attention to those. Lever harpists, just ignore them. On the flip side, these diamond note heads like this, that's a lever change marking to indicate the lever on that specific string that's notated on the page. So we've got a number of those. We've got one here. We've got a few on the next page as well. We've got a pedal marking, lever marking, pedal marking. We've got a couple of lever changes here. We've got a couple of pedal changes right at the end. We're going to get to that in a second. But it's always a good idea to just look through the piece and find all the places where a lever or pedal change is going to come into play. Next, let's make note of fingerings. So in this arrangement, there are places where all of the fingerings as well as brackets are written in, and then there are places where they're not. So there's places where there's nothing above the note, there's places where there's maybe numbers, but not brackets. The reason why I've done that in this case is just because I find that when there's too much black on the page, too many numbers, too many brackets, it can start to become a little overwhelming to the eye. But anywhere along in this piece, feel free to write those in yourself. I find sometimes like your own pencil just is doesn't feel as cluttered to the eye as black on the page. So in this tutorial, I am going to go over all of the fingerings. So if you're confused at all, you will know what to do with your fingers by the end of this video. Something else to pay attention to here is the clefs that we're going to be using, right? So your treble clef, your bass clef. At the beginning of the piece, we are starting with the treble clef on the bottom staff. So both staffs are using the treble clef here, so that means both hands are going to be playing notes above middle C. And then, partway through the first line, left hand is switching back to the bass clef indicated there, and then you can see at the beginning of the second line, that bass clef is back where it normally is, but that's just something to be aware of. Now, something else that is really important to take note of before you begin learning a piece is making note of where there's repeating material, because if you know that it's the same material both times, you only have to learn it once, and then you've got twice as much music learned. In this piece, let's take a look through and see where there's material that repeats. So primarily, the main repeating material in Merry-Go-Round of Life is, if you look at the second line, measure 8 here, we've got this wide jumping pattern. So we go D, G, B, D, and then on the second page, this first line is actually exactly the same as what we have on line 2. Okay, let's take a look at the third line on the first page. We start out with G, B, D, G, and then we continue just kind of moving by step. On page 2, we start out with the same figure here, but then we have something a little bit different in the right hand, and then the left hand's going to be a little bit different as well. But it's good to know where things are similar and where things are different, and then once we start learning the piece, really making note of exactly how they are different from each other. And then last but not least, we want to make a note of symbols, markings, any kind of instructions, just because once we get into learning the notes, it's really easy to kind of just ignore everything else on the page. So we want to go in beforehand and really be aware of all of the instructions. So some easy ones, things like dynamic markings, right? So P for piano or soft, mezzo forte, MF, medium loud, and then we've just got a piano right at the end for this last chord in terms of dynamics. Let's look for other symbols. Right here, this little sort of half moon with a dot, that's called a fermata, and it means to hold that note for longer than normal, or since this is the harp, we're not really holding the note, just wait a little bit longer than normal before you continue on with the music. Here at the end, it says poco rit. So rit is short for ritardando, which means to gradually get slower. Poco means little. So this instruction here means to get a little bit slower, which is really nice because that's right in front of our big lever change spot. And then we also have a little squiggly beside this chord here. That's the symbol to indicate a rolled chord. Okay, now that we've got a good look at what's going on in the piece, let's go through line by line, and I'm going to show you how to play this piece. So to start with, we have this intro section here. It sounds like this. So we can see here, looking at the notes, that they're moving by step, right? So the notes go up, down, etc., just moving by step. We've got right hand and left hand moving in parallel direction. They're not playing the same notes, but they are moving the same direction, and the fingerings are happening in unison as well. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Now, let's take a closer look at the fingerings, right? So brackets mean fingers being placed on the strings, touching the strings together before you play either note. And when you've got them overlapping like this, so right, we've got an overlap basically on every note here because we're just going back and forth. It might look a little crazy, but all it really is we're going back and forth between the same two notes, so you're just replacing the finger you just played back onto the note, right? So for this first measure here, I play my 2, I'm going to open the finger and then put it back. I open my thumb and I put it back. Okay, so each of those pairs of notes happens 3 times. Then we've got a little apostrophe here. So in music, most often this actually means, this is called a breath mark, but most often in harp fingerings, when you see that, what it means is to come off the string. So don't connect. So between this E and this C, and then same thing in the left hand, this A and this C, rather than using a connecting fingering there, right, instead of going 2, 1, and then getting my second finger on in advance, I'm actually going to come off the string. So I'm going to finish playing 2, 1. My fingers are closed in my hand. I'm going to reopen my hand, place the next group of 2 and 1 separately. So I'm not connecting in that spot. The reason why is because the left hand is right here on this C already, right? So the first note of the second bar in the right hand is the same note that the left hand just finished playing. So it's a little bit of a tricky connection. It's not impossible, but lifting off between each measure is just going to be a little bit easier. Okay, now let's talk fingerings for these two bars. So since these two bars are very similar, the fingering is implied, but let's just go over it together where, again, both hands, it's going to be 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. You're going to be connecting all through here at the end of the bar, right? Breath mark, we're going to come off the string. This is the same in the left hand. And then same thing again, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. All connected through there as well. And then again, come off the string on the 1. And then we're going to go 1, 2, 3. You can place those all together to finish out the bar. Then at the end of this line here, we're going to jump down into the bass clef. So we're going to take this 5th with finger 3 and finger 1 in the left hand, and then right hand taking these last couple of notes, and then on this F, you can let that F sharp ring for as long as you want because we've got that fermata on the top. Let's continue looking at the second line. So to start with, we have this fingering, which I am going to explain if you're confused at all. So we have D, G, B, D. There's two options for the fingering here. The first option is to take the first D with your left hand. So just playing that first note in the measure with your left hand, second finger. And then your right hand just has to play a triad shape, right? So we've got 2 skips, right? So skip and then skip, that's our triad shape, hopefully a familiar shape. You can, if you're comfortable and you know how to reach this type of chord, you can also place a finger 4 in the right hand on that D. But as I just demonstrated there, sometimes it can be easy to hit an extra string with the 4th finger. So if the 4th finger in the right hand feels uncomfortable or too hard, you can just grab that with the left hand instead. All right, continuing on, let's start by looking at the right hand. So again, we have another overlapping fingering here, connecting fingering. So all that means is you play 1, 2, 3. Then before you place your 4th finger, you're going to get the thumb placed on the B just above it, right? So if I do that in time, all right, so that's the right hand. Let's look at the left hand. So in a number of places here in this piece, we're going to have sort of a broken triad kind of shape. So here, we just talked about the triad where we have a skip and then a skip. So C, E, and G in this case. Those are the 3 notes we're going to be using, but we're going to place all 3 fingers at once, 3, 2, 1. We're going to play finger 3 first on the C. Then we're going to play the 1 and 2 together. So anywhere you see this kind of shape where you've got a note by itself and then this little 2-note chord that's a skip apart, right? And the bottom note is also going to be a skip apart. You can assume it's the same fingering. Wow, that's a really messy 3. That wasn't really any better, was it? Okay, whatever. Okay, so we place those together, and that's how we're going to play those figures. And then if you see a note that's by itself, for the most part, if it's not marked otherwise, you can just play that with a finger 2. All right, so looking at the third line, we've got some fingerings, but not brackets. Again, just to kind of keep things clean. So in the right hand here, we've got that alternate fingering. So if you're going to go left hand 2, then you can place these 3 fingers together. Then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then connect onto that thumb. So in this case, the second grouping, right, where we've got this repeated G, we're going to place fingers 1, 2, and 3 all on the string together. You play your thumb the first time, lift it up, replace it, play again. Then before you play the third finger, we're going to lift the thumb, place it, and there's our little phrase. Okay, left hand is going to be doing the same things here, right? This is our little triad placement. 3, 1, 2. We can play these with finger 2. Now, this line is also where we get our first pedal change and lever change. So, something important to remember when it comes to pedal and lever changes is you want to do them where they are marked. So in this case, this F natural pedal, if you play the pedal harp, you want to take your foot and move your F pedal out of the notch and up on beat 1, right, of this measure right here, so that it happens just as you are playing this F, so that you hear an F natural there, not an F sharp. For the lever change at the end of the bar here, so we are going to want to change an E flat to an E natural. Once you get to this measure, we've got a dotted half note in each hand, which means that each hand has 3 beats before it has to do anything else. So to play this lever change, first we need to know which string is it on. So it's on the E, 2 E's above middle C. So we can call this the high E, okay? So what I'm gonna wanna do is, first of all, know which lever it is. I know it needs to come up. Now, when you're doing a lever change, I highly recommend holding the lever between your thumb and second finger. And you wanna actually just like practice moving it quickly. I feel like with lever changes, like it feels a little silly to like just practice moving a lever, but you need to know what it feels like, and you need to know like how much force you need to use, especially if maybe your levers are a little bit stiff. The next thing we need to do is practice getting from the left hand note that is going to be played there and changing the lever, and then figuring out where the left hand is going next. So in this case, I would play my B, get my hand up to the lever, and you can actually even just practice that, just playing your B and getting your finger onto that E as fast as you can, right? We don't want to like play this string and then take a leisurely stroll over to the lever. No, it's like as soon as you're done playing, I want my hand right here. If you do that, you're not going to feel that rushed to change. You're actually going to feel like you have a lot of time to change the lever because you're eliminating all this travel time. Okay, so we play the note, we move the hand, we flip the lever, then we need to know where is the hand going next. So if we look at the beginning of the next line, if we use this fingering, we're going to have left hand playing an A in the treble clef. So we're going to end up on this string here. So then I will play the B, move my hand, flip the lever, and get my left hand onto its next string. Then what we want to do once you're in the hands together part of learning this song is we want to play both hands right on this note right here, right there. We're going to play that note, move the left hand, flip the lever, get both hands into their next position. If you follow those steps to learn all the lever changes in this piece, you're gonna be just fine. I know they're scary, but they're doable. Okay, let's continue on. Next line. Okay, first of all, pedal harpists, you've got an E natural pedal right here, so make sure you're ready for that. Left hand is going to be pretty simple on this line. We've got finger 2, finger 2. We do have a ledger line here, but don't freak out. When you're counting ledger lines up from the bass clef staff, we know the first line is middle C, then we just count through the spaces and lines through the alphabet. So the first line is C, then it would be D on the space, E on this second line here. If you need to write in your ledger lines, go ahead and do that. That's totally fine, but that's how to figure that out. Now let's talk about the right hand. So first of all, we've got a long string of connecting fingerings, and the longer a string goes on, the more overwhelming it can start to feel, just because we're like kind of not getting a break. When you do have a big long string of connecting fingerings like this, there's a 2-step loop that you just repeat. It's place the whole bracket, play up to the overlap. Place the whole next bracket, play up to the overlap. Place the whole next bracket, play up to the overlap until you come to the end of the string. Now, we are going to go through that together in just a second, but first, there's a couple of other things we need to be aware of. First of all, at the end of this line, you can see there's no end to this bracket. It's left open. Same thing at the beginning of the last line. There's no end of this square bracket, and that is because these 3 notes are intended to be played in one placement. So this G, F, and E, we'll want to make sure that we're placing all 3 of those fingers together. Second thing to kind of be aware of here is this fingering right here. A little bit weird, right? We've got 4, 3, and 1, and the notes are all by step. So that means we're gonna have a second finger that's kind of just sandwiched in between the other fingers. So let's talk about why and how to do that. Okay, so the reason why is because we've got 4 notes all coming downwards here, right? So the most logical fingering for those 4 notes, all moving the same direction, is just to go 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Then we have, as we just talked about, these 3 notes here going all one direction. 1, 2, 3. That's the most logical fingering for those 3. Now we have to figure out how are we getting between these 2 groups of notes, right? So There's never one objectively correct fingering. There's usually multiple options, but I do think musically, right, this is all one phrase or one musical idea. These notes belong together. So a lot of the time it's going to sound best if the fingerings are also connected to each other. So 3 is usually going to be a little bit more comfortable for this kind of tight positioning than 2. You could come off after one of these notes. So if you really hate this fingering, feel free to come off either after the E or after the F there. But to play this fingering as I've written it, this 4, 3, and 1, what we're going to want to see is we're going to want to just make sure that there's a lot of space between your thumb and your second finger, right? So when I say that, I mean this kind of round area between my thumb and my second finger. I don't want to have them squashed up right beside each other. I want to keep that space open so that even though my second finger doesn't get a seat on the strings, it still has somewhere to hang out, right? Now, while the second finger is hanging out there, we want to make sure that it's not sticking up in the air, a little bunny ear. Okay, that's going to make your hand very tired, and it's going to make getting onto the next placement a little harder than it needs to be. So if we can keep that second finger tucked away, that's going to be the best way to do this fingering. So let's actually go through this string of fingers together. So, right, our 2-step loop. You place the bracket, you play up to the overlap. So I'm going to start with the first bracket, D, F, and A. I'm going to play up to this overlapping note. So I'm going to go 3, 2. Now before I play this overlapping note, I'm going to place through the end of this bracket. So I'm going to go 2, 3, 4, placed. Now I play up to the overlap. So my A, G, F. Now I'm at this overlap on the E. So then I'm going to get my little funky 4, 3, 1 placement on. Now I'm going to play 4 and 3 up to this overlap. Then I'm going to place through the end of the next bracket. And then we're done. Okay, so I'm going to play through that all in time so you can see what that actually looks like in action. Okay, did we all survive that? Let me know in the comments. Okay, so one last thing to note about this 4th line is that we've got another open-ended bracket in the left hand. So this one here doesn't have a closure on it, and if we see at the beginning of the next line, same thing. We've got a bracket that moves across the line break. So in the left hand, we're going to want to place 1, 2, 3, 4. These notes all just move down by step, starting on D, C, B, and then A. So left hand can kind of be set up and ready to go while you're thinking about the right hand. So it frees up your brain a little bit. Okay, so looking at the last line on this first page, main thing here is just we've got another string of overlapping brackets, right? And then we've got a lever change at the end. So this E natural that we changed in line 3, we're going to put that back to where it was in the flat position. So same thing here. We place the first bracket and then we play up to the first overlap. 1, 2, we're going to place up to here. 2 and 1 go back on. Up to the overlap, we stop, place up to there, and then we play up to the overlap. And then we get the thumb on, and then we're through. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time in time. Okay, and again for this lever change here at the end of the page, same thing. You want to practice getting from the note that the left hand is going to play to the lever you need to be on. So you can practice playing that note, moving your hand as fast as you can, and then you're going to want to be thinking about, okay, what's going on the next page. So let's look at the next page. So as we discussed about in the beginning of this video, we have some repeating material. So this entire first line is the same as the second line on the first page. So if you want to have fingerings written in here, you can just copy the fingerings from the second line on page 1. I'm going to write those in real quick. Okay, so everything we did on this line on the previous page still applies here. Now let's look at the second line on the second page here, so measure 28. So we start off with a similar beginning as what we had on line 3, right? So we can use the same fingering here. So we can go left hand 2, and then 3, 2, 1. Now it does change from here on out. So let's think about what fingering is going to make sense here. So starting with the left hand, we can use the same sort of triad shape that we've been using up till now. So placing 3, 2, and 1 all together. Playing the 3 first, the 1 and 2 afterwards. This is a slightly different chord shape in this third measure here, but you can still use the same fingering. Like that. Last notes by itself, that can be a 2. So let's talk about this last little bit in the right hand here. So generally speaking, when we're coming up with a fingering, we want to use multiple fingers in the hand when we're going the same direction. When the notes change direction, that's usually a good spot for a connecting fingering. So to start with, we've got G and A, right? So that's 2 notes moving upwards. So we're going to use finger 2 and finger 1. The 2 can be repeated, right? And we can place those together. Now we change direction, right? A to F to E, those notes are all going downwards. There's 3 notes going downwards, so we can go 1, 2, 3, no problem. We're gonna overlap those brackets there. And then we go E to F, so just a step up here. So we're gonna want another connecting fingering for sure. You can go 1 here if that feels good to you. You could also use a 2, either is fine. Okay, so that's our fingering here for this second line on the page. We do, of course, have another lever change. So that same E that we've been doing up till now, we're going to set it back to natural again. And then let's look at measure 32, this third line on page 2. Okay, so first of all, we've got another E natural pedal here. And then let's start by looking at the left hand. So we've got a couple of singles. So we can go finger 2, finger 2, and then we've got fingerings 1, 2, and 3. So we can infer from that we can place those together, do them in the same bracket. And then let's look at the right hand. So again, we've got a few different fingerings that are connected here, but we also have some places where the fingerings are not connected. So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to that as well. So let's start with the first 2 measures in the right hand. We start off with the same kind of fingering that we've seen a lot already, right? So left hand is going to take the first note, and then right hand is going to take the top 3 notes. Then we're going to connect onto finger 2, right? And we actually had something very similar, right, on the previous page. These 2 bars on page 1, they're the same as what we're seeing now. It's just that the last half of the line is different. Okay, so we start there. We've got another one of these apostrophes, another one of these breath marks. So that's a reminder to you to come off the string here. So instead of connecting these notes, because it's a bit of a longer note, we're going to come off the string, and then we've got a little string of connecting fingering. So we're going to start by placing 2 and 3 on F and E, but we don't want to place the thumb yet. So typically you only want to place fingers that are all moving in the same direction. So these 3 notes here all move the same direction. So we do want to get the thumb on after we've played this first F, right? Because the first F is going down, the next 3 notes are going up. So we don't want to have a thumb placed that isn't going to get used while the other 2 fingers are doing their stuff there, right? We want to keep things organized. Only fingers on the strings that are moving the same direction. So we're going to start by placing 2 and 3. Thumb is just going to kind of hang out, give a little thumbs up, or you can keep it closed over your second finger. So we're going to play the 2, right? So we place the bracket, we play to the overlap. So we play the 2, then we're going to get 2 and 1 on, right? Place the next bracket. Then we play to the overlap. Then we place through the end to the next brackets. We get the 2 on. And then we're done this string here. And then we just have a single bracket there. Then we're on to the last line. And this one, let's just be real, this one's the doozy, but it's not as bad as you think, okay? I'm gonna walk you through it and you're gonna do it. Okay, so let's start with these first, really 3 bars. So we have a tie here. So I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the video, but these lines here, when you have the curved lines between 2 notes that are the same, It's called a tie, and it just means that you add the value of those two notes together. So we're not going to play these chords twice. We're going to play once here, and then we're just going to let the notes ring through the duration of this fourth bar on the line, okay? So I'm just going to zoom in past it so that we can get a little closer here. So we kind of have to look at both hands together a little bit here, because we do need to make sure that the lever changes are happening and also that the pedal changes are happening, so that you can actually make sure you're playing the correct notes in the second measure here. Let's just go up to here for now, right? Because up to that point, we don't have to do any lever changes. So let's get the beginning of this line in order first, right? So we place the first bracket, then we play up to the first overlap. So we play the thumb, place to the end of the next bracket, get the thumb back on, play to the next overlap, place to the end of the next bracket. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're gonna play to the overlap. Then we're gonna place through to the end of the next bracket. So we're gonna go 4, 3, 2, 1 up to the D. And even though there's two notes on this chord at the end here, we just need to place the thumb. We'll get the 3 onto the bottom note later, but we do want to connect 4, 3, 2, 1, A, B, C, D. Okay, so if we can do that much, then we're ready for the lever or pedal changes. So let's talk about those. If you're playing the pedal harp, you want to have both the B natural and the F sharp pedal going down on beat 1 together. And then basically as soon as you can, you want to get the C sharp next, right? So with the first group of pedals, you've got B on the left foot, F sharp on the right foot, so those can go down at the same time. Then the C sharp pedal is going to follow right after, so that you're ready for when that C gets played at the end of the measure. If you are playing a lever harp, it looks scary, but it's not as bad as you think, and there's a couple of reasons for that. So once again, if I go through my placements here, once I get these 3 fingers on, I've got A, B, C, D placed, then I can pretty much just I would play this A and then move as fast as you can, but really you can take as much time as you need to move this B and this C. So it's the strings you're about to play. And then again, we've got the D already placed for that chord at the end. We're gonna just extend the 3rd finger for the bottom note. Okay, so I'm gonna do that in time. And again, once I hit the beginning of the second measure and I've got my fingers placed, I'm free to change these 2 levers whenever I want. Okay, so left hand isn't playing anything at all after this B at the very beginning of the first bar. So then you've got 3 beats to get your hand onto the lever, and then you've got 1.5 beats to change these 2. And the other thing that makes this nice is this poco rit, right? Remember that? Slow down a little bit. So you actually have more time here, right? You can get quite a bit slower. So you're gonna be okay. You can do this. And then to finish off the piece, we've got a little chord here. So we're gonna have open 5th in the left hand, 3 and 1. We're gonna have a triad in the right hand. And so since this is a rolled chord, we wanna go from the lowest note to the highest note in succession. You can choose how fast you wanna roll this. Could be, or you can go a little slower. What we don't want is to start rolling both hands at the same time. That's not gonna sound quite as pretty as if we get all 5 notes from lowest to highest. And that's it. That's Howl's Moving Castle, merry-go-round of life. Give it a go. Let me know how it is. Again, if you have any feedback, if I went too fast, if you want me to cover some of the concepts that I maybe mentioned in the video, please let me know in a comment. This is my first time doing this kind of video, so I really appreciate it. But yeah, thanks for watching and happy harping.